When Wesley talks about the human soul, he's pointing us to something really fundamental about what it means to be alive. He uses the Greek words such and anima to describe it, the living aspect of human existence in time. Now, think about that for a moment. Our soul is not just an abstract idea or a spiritual accessory. It is life itself, the enlivening force that God breathes into our physical bodies. From conception and birth, we are entrusted with this soul in a very real sense. God gives us life, God gives us existence, and God gives us the capacity to relate to Him and to the world. What's really fascinating is that Wesley emphasizes how the soul comes into being through sexual procreation as a gift of God. This is a deeply physical and divine reality. Our very life, our such, is entrusted to us in a tangible way, yet it carries this eternal dimension. Once God gives the soul, it doesn't just vanish at death. It continues beyond the body, remaining in relationship with the eternal life-giver. That's a promise found throughout Jewish and Christian scriptures. The soul will not only live on but will be reunited with the body at the resurrection on the last day. Here's an important point Wesley makes. The soul is created, which means it is not eternal in the past. There was a beginning, a moment when God gave this life. But once it exists, death cannot finally undo it. When someone dies, the body ceases its movement, the heart stops, breathing stops, circulation stops, but the soul does not cease to exist. It leaves the body but continues to live, awaiting what Wesley calls the general resurrection. This is the end-time event when God will reunite body and soul in a glorified, perfected state. The body is transformed, yes, but it remains the same body. Death, then, is not final destruction, it is temporary separation. The soul lives, and the body will live again, gloriously renewed. Wesley doesn't stop there. He also turns our attention to matter itself. Just as our souls are created, so is everything material. Nothing in creation is eternal in itself. Matter has a beginning, because it is created by God. But here's the hopeful part. Once God creates matter, it is not annihilated. It may change, it may transform. It may pass through countless forms and conditions, but God preserves it. There is no reason for God to destroy matter, because God's purposes for creation endure. Even the tiniest particles, the very atoms of the universe, will continue to exist in some form, transmuted to fulfill God's eternal plan. So, even the hardest substances, like diamonds, may be broken down into dust under extreme conditions. Yet even as dust, they continue in God's creation. Now, this brings us to a really fascinating theological distinction Wesley makes. No creature shares with God the attribute of eternal aseity. This is a fancy way of saying that God's being is necessary. God exists without beginning or end. Creatures, including humans and everything material, do not have that self-sustaining, eternal being. Yet, Wesley suggests there is no contradiction in imagining that creatures might have an eternal existence in the after, a party post. That is, while creatures are changeable and contingent in the present, God's creative power ensures that they are not ultimately perishable. Their substance remains, even as it takes on different forms. Matter changes, but it is not annihilated. The essence continues through countless transformations, and in the end, is brought to fulfillment. This is deeply comforting, because it helps us see that God's promise of a new creation is not about wiping out the old, but about transforming it. The new heaven and the new earth will be a complete renovation, a fulfillment of creation, but not a destruction. Everything that exists now, all matter, all life, all creation, will be melted and reshaped, yet nothing will be lost. Wesley uses a beautiful analogy. Just as matter can change forms while remaining the same substance, so too the soul continues after death, though in a different spiritual form. Life persists, though the form may be transformed, and creation itself is redeemed and perfected in God's eternal plan. So, what we get from Wesley here is a vision of continuity, not annihilation. Life, both physical and spiritual, is part of God's ongoing story. Death is not the end. Matter is not destroyed. Souls live on and will be reunited with their bodies. The transformation of the world. The transformation of matter. and the resurrection of the body and soul are all part of God's faithful, creative, and restorative plan. Every atom, every life, every moment is part of God's grand design, unfolding toward eternal fulfillment. It's amazing, when you think about it, how this perspective changes everything about the way we live in the present. If our bodies and souls are destined for resurrection, if creation itself is going to be redeemed, then our lives gain a profound weight. Our actions matter. Our choices have significance. And our care for the world, for each other, and for our own souls is grounded in the eternal purposes of God. Nothing is trivial. Nothing is lost. Nothing is beyond God's power to redeem. Wesley's vision is both hopeful and practical. Hopeful, because we can trust that God will bring all things to their rightful end. Practical, because knowing that everything, our souls, our bodies, the material world, is part of a divine plan, gives us reason to live responsibly, ethically, and with joy in the present moment.